Hi, good afternoon, everybody. A very warm welcome to our webinar this afternoon, where we'll be discussing the importance of end-to-end immutability. I can see we have a number of our customers who are joining us today, so thank you very much for your time, and always nice to have you on board for these sessions. We're also welcomed by a number of prospects, so great to welcome you also, and I hope you all enjoy the session that we have for you this afternoon. Before I start, some quick housekeeping points. If we could move on to the next slide, please. Here we go. So first of all, you're automatically going to be muted on entry, so that prevents you from hacking me. You'll also have an opportunity to ask as many questions as you want. We'll have a session at the end where we'll address those questions, so please do partake in that. We'll also share the recording of this session, so please sit back and relax, enjoy the presentations. And during the webinar, we'll be running a live poll, asking a few questions from the audience, and really it's designed to gain more value, so we can see what the audience is thinking and what experiences they have. So today, first of all, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Gurdip Sohel. I'm the Sales Director here for the Data Protection business at Covenco. I'll be joined by my colleagues, David Johnson, who's the Account Manager for EMEA at ObjectFirst. We'll be introducing our partnership with ObjectFirst, who are a provider of an immutable appliance, which is quite exciting. I'm also delighted to welcome Luca De Loca, who is the Principal Cloud Architect for the Cloud Connect part of Veeam, looks after EMEA and highly knowledgeable about all things Veeam. So he'll be talking to us about what's coming in version 13. We've got Ben Westlake, our own Head of Managed Services, again, who'll be talking about end-to-end immutability from a back-end perspective. So what's coming up in the session? We'll be obviously having a discussion around ransomware, what's trending, what's shaping the landscape for ransomware at the moment. We'll look at what immutability really means, what it means for your data. We'll look at ways you can protect it, not just offsite, but on-premise as well, and that's becoming more and more important as part of a wider backup strategy. We'll then move on to what's new in version 13. Luke will be covering all that. And then, like I said, a live Q&A at the end to address any questions that you may have. So I'll start just giving you a quick overview of what we see as shaping up the security landscape at the moment. You may have seen this slide before if you've been on previous webinars. It hasn't changed a lot because these are the real concerns that are out there. AI is by far the most concerning for many people that we've spoken to. AI agents are becoming more and more of a talking point within the industry because they, have the ability to execute very complex tasks. Scheduling appointments, ordering your groceries, for example, and even as far as making changes to your computer system. So very powerful tools and great assistance, but in the wrong hands, they could be a very big threat. So that's massive. Internet of Things, remote working, post-COVID, the vulnerabilities that threat actors try and exploit, that's still very, very popular. Supply chain attacks, again, continue to be very common and a massive concern. You've all seen over the last few days, a few weeks, should I say now, with Marks and Spencer and Co-op and Harrods and the like being affected. They have massive supply chains, so it causes a great deal of concern throughout those supply chains. We've actually got a live invocation for a supplier of Marks and Spencer's who were attacked last night at 9:30 in the evening. So we're working through a live ransomware scenario at the moment. So all of this is very relevant to those guys at the moment. Ransomware as a service This is where you've got very sophisticated ransomware groups who create ransomware prepackaged for less competent ransomware threat actors to go and widely exploit customers. Disinformation, deepfake. We've seen disinformation used to drive various outcomes in the marketplace. Deepfake and social engineering tactics created to penetrate into customer environments. The M&S attack, for example, there's reports that someone posed or called into the help desk posing as a user, explained that they had a new phone, got them to circumnavigate the MFA process and found themselves getting into an environment. I mean, that's just almost a next level to the traditional stuff that we see in the ransomware space. Cloud security, again, very popular because of the drive or the continued drive to cloud environments. So we need to ensure that cloud configurations are good. How do we do that? How wide does it go? All of that sort of good stuff forms part of that sort of cloud security sector. And then you've got the geopolitical aspect of the landscape, where you've got nation-state attacks to expose infrastructure, the various conflicts that have been going on over the last few years and continue to increase. So all of these factors are what we see as shaping the current cybersecurity landscape. Right, next slide. This is something that you may or may not be aware of, but the Department for Science, Innovation and Technology, DCIT, commissioned a report where they looked at various cyber breaches in 2025. Some of the statistics here quite harrowing. 43% of the study showed that companies had been breached. 30% of charities were breached. Medium-sized businesses running at 67%, and 74% of large businesses. So the problem is very, very real. It's very active. We see it as a service provider for backup and DR. Last year we responded to 8 attacks. We had one last night that we're responding to now. So this isn't just scaremongering. Unfortunately, this is a real problem, and hopefully this session will set out some of the ways that we can help to protect you against this problem. So when a threat actor is actively targeting you as an organization, what are they really going for? We found that they will go for your backups, and 89% of organizations that have been hit by ransomware or cyber breach, they found that the backup repository is being targeted. Now, 76% of those repositories have been affected in some form or another, and at least 34% of those repositories have seen data being deleted. The remaining, there's either modifications or there's been ransomware encryption on them. So the point here is that they're trying to disable your ability to be able to recover and recover effectively, giving them a greater chance of that ransom being paid. So if this is the problem, then how are we helping with all of this? Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so this is going to go onto a poll, which you can do whilst I'm going through to the next stage. But if that's the problem, then how are we going to help? And this is where we've formed a partnership with ObjectFirst, who are a security provider for an immutable appliance, which is a Veeam ready immutable appliance. And David Johnson is going to be talking about that in a short while. So before I move on, let's have a look at the results of the first poll. So 80% haven't suffered an attack in the last, or 86% haven't suffered an attack in the last 12 months, and 14% aren't sure or prefer not to say. Okay, that's understandable. We understand it's a very sensitive subject, but 86%. That's a good stat. So I'm hoping that you've also got some really strong provisions in place. So David, please take it away with the ObjectFirst solution.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gurdeep. So yeah, so obviously Gurdit was sharing a second ago some of the dangers that are in the market at this moment in time, and so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Object First, where we've come from. So one of the interesting things about Object First is that we were founded by Ratmir and Andrei. Ratmir Timoshev and Andrei Baranov are actually the original founders of Veeam. So they created Veeam in 2006, and they sold it up in 2019, and then set about starting a solution that was a physical appliance that could connect into Veeam. So one of the key things to understand is that we work exclusively for Veeam. So our backup repository has been specifically designed to be a primary backup area for those Veeam backups. And they started this solution with one thing in mind, which is that they didn't want customers like yourselves to ever have to pay a ransomware fee again to kind of get your ransomware back up and running. And there's a few steps that they took to try and achieve that, which is they wanted to make sure that the best storage is secure. They wanted to make sure that the storage is simple to do, and they wanted to make sure it is incredibly powerful. Now, from a secure point of view, I will go into a little bit more about how we do that. From a simplicity point of view, that is primarily because they understand not every end user has an established IT team with lots and lots of experience, and there's a lot of storage solutions out there on the market today that offer secure solutions, but they can be quite complex. So if you have an IT team where you don't believe you have that level of IT kind of depth, and you typically would have to lean on a partner such as Covenco, our solution is really been designed to help you out there and be something that you don't have to worry about. And in terms of powerful, if you are hit and affected by ransomware, if you're one of those people that Gerdit was sharing earlier in those stats that does get affected, having a solution that you can recover from, get that data back as soon as possible is quite key. Move ahead. So going through some of these solutions, if you have an on-premise solution at this moment in time, then chances are you're using one of these types of solutions. So NAS boxes, direct attached storage, been around forever. And as you can see in the graphic, powerful. You can recover back from a NAS box. Think your types of QNAP, think your type of Synology, those types of solutions. You can recover from those pretty quickly. They're very, very simple. At the point where NAS boxes nowadays, people have them in their homes to extend their music libraries, to extend their gaming portfolios. They're designed now to be pretty easy to set up. The one thing that direct attached storage was never invented for, it wasn't created for, and isn't suitable for is as your primary backup solution that you believe is the most secure. They're not immutable, right? Those types of solutions were not created with security at the front of mind. They're great places to extend storage when you're in a pinch, or a lot of people have them from a legacy point of view. Deduplication. So as data has only grown, dedupe solutions have grown alongside them. These offer an ability to fit a lot of data into a storage solution without having to keep expanding those boxes. You can compress the files and get quite a lot more data into one sized box. Now, these, if you are doing some form of a recovery from a dedupe box, then you are not going to be able to recover as fast. It's one or the other, right? You either have deduplication and a bit slower of a recovery plan, or you have no deduplication and you recover. So our solution has been designed without deduplication. We allow Veeam to take care of the compression before the data comes to our box. And that is to allow for the fastest recovery. In terms of simplicity, if anybody's using a dedupe box and somebody's managing that, there is a lot of complexity that goes into it to keep it updated, to first set it up and configure it. And from a security point of view, a lot of these solutions nowadays do offer a degree of immutability. But the one thing that you have to trust in these types of solutions is they will tell you that they're secure, but there's not really a third-party check that's also backing that they are as immutable as they say. So there's an area of doubt there. One of the by far most used solutions in the last 10 years to try and protect people from ransomware is a hardened Linux repository. So this is, you think of buying a HP server or a Dell server, put a load of disks in there. You've got a pretty powerful primary backup solution to recover from if you are hit. The issue with these is they're not very simple to do traditionally. You need a lot of expertise to get one up and running and get it to where it needs to be. And from a secure point of view, a HLR typically is only as secure as the expertise you have to get it to that level. Now, Veeam themselves have actually come out with a Linux repository, and they've made that process a little bit simple, but there is an element of DIY that still goes along that, and that's where it leads into our solution, what I was touching upon earlier. Our box has been designed, there's no DIY required for it, there's no expertise that you really need. Somebody like Covenco can install this solution for you in 15 minutes, and then it is done. It's designed to be set up and left in a corner as your insurance policy. It is powerful to be able to recover from. It is incredibly simple to get set up, and it is secure out of the box. After the 15-minute setup, the very first backup you do from your Veeam environment to the device is immutable. It is pretty easy to do. We move it along. So these three pillars basically ensure that we have what we deem is a ransomware-proof solution. So it is, as I said, it's secure when it turns up. The box itself is called OOTBI, which stands for out of the box immutability. It's simple, 15 minutes to box to backup, and powerful, lightning fast. Each box comes up with a 1 gigabit communication between the box itself and that Veeam environment for the fastest recoveries. You can stack 4 of our boxes in a cluster, and the speed increases with each node added to get up to 4 gigabytes per second in speeds. With our biggest box, it's 2 gigabytes, and you can stack up to 4 and get 8. So I just want to touch across, the point of this webinar is obviously touching across security and immutability, and I want to touch upon zero trust principles. Now, the zero trust principles have been out for a very long time. Almost everybody who runs an IT team and IT environment in your business is probably following these guidelines to some degree, right? Assuming breach, segmenting access, verify. So everybody's had the problem with MFA being a bit of a pain, right? Always having to log in and sign into things all the time, but it is an extra layer of security that people need. And using the least privileged access, making sure that not everybody has the top admin rights, only those that actually need it. So what Veeam did alongside others not too long ago was extend those zero trust principles to basically include that backup and recovery piece. So now the zero trust principles have grown into separating that backup software and backup storage to protect you. So if your Veeam environment, if you are penetrated and they do try and delete and completely clear out that Veeam environment on the server that it is on, it's a good idea to have a completely separate backup now than having your backup on the same box, right? So it protects you in that way. We've all seen the rise of 321, but you can now add a 0 onto that, which then steps in for the immutability. Is that having that data that is has 0 ability to be deleted, changed, affected, or encrypted, so that if you are affected in any kind of way, you can ring Covenco and say, I'd like to recover back from that box because I know I have an immutable copy of all of my critical data that I can get back up and running as quickly as possible, as quickly as it takes you to get me a clean environment set up. So in the market space, there's quite a few vendors at the moment who talk about immutability. And what we will say is everybody's talking about immutability, but then there is true immutability. Immutability means nothing if it can be compromised with a breach. There's a lot of vendors who offer immutability, but when it comes to walking back a mistake, say you've accidentally done 90 days, instead of, if you've made a mistake in any capacity, then if you've made a mistake in any capacity, a lot of those vendors will allow you to give you temporary credential access to basically walk that back. That in a time of an actual ransomware attack, having any access to the top code to be able to delete or wipe that box in any capacity leaves your solution vulnerable. Our solution takes that one step further. We do not give any privileges. Once you have set up the box, there is no privilege for the end user or the partner involved to be able to delete or change or modify that data for a mistake or in the event of an attack. Nobody can change anything without having to come to ObjectFirst themselves, and there are several processes you have to go through before we will allow anything to happen on that box, which just makes it virtually impossible. I'd like to open it up for Yeah, go ahead.
Very comprehensive. I'm sure that the customer who's been hit by the ransomware attack last night could really have benefited from a solution like this, because their repository has actually been encrypted. And then that was discovered this morning when they brought power back to their systems, albeit completely isolated and disconnected from the internet. So no, it's really, really interesting stuff. And as you were saying, David, this is a scalable solution, right? So it starts very small and it can grow to a larger scale. Is that right?
Yeah. So in 2 slides time, I'll show you exactly the family of solutions that we have, so you can see exactly where we start and where we end up. And just finishing up then regarding that immutability piece, some of the steps that we've basically built our solution off the back of, we use S3 as the communication. So, obviously AWS created this many years ago. It is one of the most secure and one of the most scalable types of storage now. And that's what we built our entire infrastructure off the back of. Zero time. So like I said, about that 15 minutes to backup, we allow you to basically have immutable backups at the fastest pace, and the communication between the two devices is rapid. There's a lot of technical nuance to this, and if you want to learn more, speak to our SEs, go through Covenco, and we can obviously have a one-on-one demo and talk exactly about what the solution has from the software piece and what the communication between Veeam and ourselves is. We do not allow any access to root. So there is no access to anybody deleting. If you are hacked, there is no chance that they can delete anything on that box. We don't allow the Veeam software to be hosted on our box. So there is that forced separation of the backup software and storage. And it is purpose built. Like I said, the owners of our organization, who were the original owners of Veeam, when they started the solution, they did so with that direct conversation with Veeam when they were building it, to make sure that it was purpose built and spoke to that Veeam environment at the fastest rate. You want to move on, David? So one of the things I touched upon earlier is when we say we're secure, we're not just saying it. We have actually sent our box out to the NCC group and basically effectively asked them to hack our box. We've given them all the credentials, we've given them all the access. We've basically pretended that they hacked our top admin and got all the passwords to everything, and then said, please try and delete. Now they did come back with some pointers. In terms of best practice would be to turn this off, do this, to change it. I think they gave us 18 bits of feedback. We absolutely amended everything they suggested to do, and then effectively came out with the statement that you're reading on the screen, which is, when we say that your data, whilst it is in its immutable window, is impenetrable, we mean it. Right, and it's there for everybody to see. We've got loads of third party across America and EMEA that basically can verify that if your data is on our box, it is untouchable.
And from a design perspective and an appliance, we have a number of customers that are maybe on this call that would have storage networks that they take their backups over from a snapshot based. Is there integration at that level with this appliance?
I'm sorry, it broke up for me there. Got it.
Sorry, I was going to say, is there options for connectivity in 10 gig and fiber channel, for example?
Yes, there is. Yeah, so the box itself so the smaller boxes themselves all come with 10 gig copper, 10 gig fiber channel connectivity. The biggest box has 25 gigs connected in there. And as you can see, the families are now on the screen. So we start off at 20 terabytes and we go all the way up to 432. Each of these boxes can be stacked in clusters of 4, and then you can actually do a scale out backup repository, which allows for 4 clusters of 4 nodes, so you can get up to 7 petabytes of. So this solution covers top enterprise, it covers right the way down to your smallest SMBs. So there is something for everybody. So as I've mentioned, effectively, what we believe we are the best storage for Veeam. If you are using Veeam today and you are thinking about your backup solutions and what you're going to do, ObjectFirst is a custom-built solution, ready-made for Veeam. It's secure by default, immutable out of the box. Takes 15 minutes to set up, so it's not complicated. You do not need to go on daily or weekly retreats to learn how to work and keep our box updated. You don't need to keep an eye on it all the time because it will update itself, or you can just download a packet and send that through. Supercharged instant recovery when you need it, and it will communicate with Veeam at the fastest rate. And that's everything I wanted to talk about. Thank you very much.
That's excellent, David. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's a very interesting proposition. It does add that additional layer of protection, which almost really ought to be part of everybody's thinking, is my opinion. And that's all great. And if you're a single site and you've got one of these appliances and your backups are immutable, that's great. But then if the dreaded plane lands on that building, then how do we extend that immutability? And this is where I want to bring in Ben to really talk about what options Covenco provide to extend that immutability to an offsite state, so we get that whole end-to-end discussion going. So Ben?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Gerdip. So yeah, really good deep dive there, and yeah, thanks David as well for the deep dive into the OOTBI. Kind of, yeah, as Gerdip said, really powerful solution there. Kind of makes immutability, I suppose, simple, secure, and as David said, really performant right out of the box. Some really impressive speeds there as well when it comes to the Veeam recoveries. So yeah, hi guys, I'm Ben Westlake. I'm the head of managed services at Covenco, and as Gerdip kind of mentioned at the start of the call, we do actually have a live SWAT session ongoing at the moment for a ransomware attack. And yeah, again, as Gerdip mentioned, at present it's looking like some sort of immutable repository or insider protected backup is probably going to be the success story in this case. So this really is pertinent to the point at the moment. So we're going to go across the next couple of slides, and as we mentioned again, we're going to talk how immutability plays into the much bigger picture, not just locally, but into the whole grand scheme of things. So obviously,
before we do that, Ben, there was a poll there was a poll that was taking place about the approach of the audience into or their approach to backup, and interestingly, we've got 5% of the audience who only have an on-premise backup, so no off-site backup at all. Cloud backups only 11%, and then hybrid on-premise and cloud 84%, which again I'm really encouraged by. So it's nice to see you're following the 3-2-1-1 principle, I hope. But yeah, we'll look more into that shortly with Ben.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, good poll results, and yeah, apologies. The polls always have a few seconds delay on them, so they always catch us out. Okay, so we've got here on the slide. Yeah, let's be honest and let's look at the reality of how things are here. So the way we see it, cloud infrastructures are almost like fingerprints. No environment or no two environments are going to be the same, and the same can probably be said for DR strategies, risk profiles, compliance needs, all those sort of things, limitations as well. Let's not forget. So I suppose when we are designing a backup and recovery model or a backup and recovery infrastructure for a customer, we start by asking ourselves some really key pillars and key questions, and they are, when it comes down to the customer and the business, what are the recovery time objectives and what are the recovery point objectives? Again, acronyms we use time and time again on all of our webinars and calls. We're probably also going to look at, what is the threat model we're defending against? Is it ransomware, as the case is what we're looking at the moment? Is it insider threat? Is it accidental deletion? Or again, as Gerdip mentioned, there are the physical sides of disaster recovery. There are fire, flood, if a plane lands on the building, etc. So, we need to, I suppose, really just focus on the fact that immutability is a design decision, and it's I suppose, the answers from those questions that directly influence those design decisions. And I suppose the last acronym we need to think about on this slide is RTA, one probably not so muchly used, but recovery time actual. So, what is the real life recovery time versus the objective? I suppose we internally, we kind of measured it, or we call it measured reality. You can have a look at the next slide, please. So our 3-2-1-1-0 rule. So again, I know we bring it up all the time, every webinar, it's probably mentioned about 10 times. But yeah, we're talking about immutability here and how important it is. So immutability, it really is what unlocks that second one in our 3-2-1-1-0 rule. It's that one copy of our data that is either going to be immutable offline. And what is that copy? That copy is really, it's going to be our safety net. It's going to be our insurance policy, like David mentioned earlier. It's going to be that box that's sat in the corner that is going to be your real last go-to if you really need it. And what it means is that if your production environment is compromised, if someone deliberately does target your backups and delete it, as we have seen overnight in this particular case, you would still have a version that simply cannot be deleted or modified or encrypted. And again, we need to talk about repository types. We've touched on an immutable object store, Linux hardened repositories, the OOTBI appliance, and things as air-gap tape. Again, I'll go into some of the more technical details of those in the next slide. I suppose, probably not to be forgotten as well, or not to be mistaken, is those we are focusing on immutability and the number, the second one in our 32110 rule. Please do not be mistaken. The other 321s are extremely critical. They're not to be forgotten. They cannot be missed. We really need to think that every layer of protection here is another layer that is just going to help us at the end of the day. So if we can
you're right. To be truly comprehensive, if we follow that 3211 principle, then what effectively you have is a number of options to recover your data, and you want to be in that position where you've got options rather than just an option. So yeah,
exactly. That's key. Options. I mean, we know too well from what we do, all the time, that options are key. You never can have too many options. The amount of times we've had 2 options, 3, 4, 5, 6, and hit hurdles at every single point, until you get to the one that works. So, again, this is why we probably focus on design so much, in that, every scenario warrants different parts of the design, and we want to make sure that we get that design right for every customer.
And actually, from a recovery point of view, and I'm harping on about this current
that's good.
invocation scenario that we have on, we've actually restored from their cloud repository, which is an immutable repository, but we've also kicked off a restore from a tape from 2 weeks ago, just so that there's a set of data that if they had to go back 2 weeks, it's there and it's available. And that 2 weeks was advised to us by the incident response agency that this customer is called upon by their insurance company. So it's just an option, a backstop measure, but it's there and it's available for them.
Yep, definitely. Okay, we're going to quickly just run through some of these repo bits that are on the screen. I won't go through all of them one by one. I know a lot of people on the call are technical, so we're going to know. Other repositories that are immutable available to us. We do have our standard repositories. We're talking immutable, so Linux-based here. Again, we touched on the fact that they're reliable, they're fast, they're local. As David touched on, they can be susceptible to configuration mistakes. They're only as they're only as strong as the skill set of the person configuring them, as we mentioned. We've got some others, scale out backup repositories as well. Again, with Veeam version 11 and onwards, we've got the ability to assign different immutability to different extents. Again, some cool stuff we can do there with immutability in different logical repositories. Cloud Connect, we touched on before. Veeam Platinum partners and Veeam service providers such as ourselves, we have a great amount of flexibility to layer almost any type of immutable repository behind your Cloud Connect tenancy. So again, if you've got any interest in a particular type of immutable repository and you're a Veeam Cloud Connect customer, we can layer different repositories behind Cloud Connect. And a couple of others there, again, I won't touch too much on. Obviously, tape still remains extremely popular and strong. And so does similar sort of things such as VTL. But I suppose what I'm really touching on here is that, or emphasizing on, is that defense is in depth, and that not all protection, really relies on immutability, where that big picture comes in. And if we can have a quick look at the next slide, please. Okay, we're going to quickly touch on here the DRMM, which is the Data Resiliency Maturity Model framework. So this is a strategic framework. It was developed by Veeam in collaboration with McKinsey and MIT in the States, and some very, very headstrong cybersecurity experts. And what it really does is it helps organizations assess their current data resiliency posture, and can provide a roadmap to enhance that ability to withstand and recover from disruptions. And this is something I think that was brought up in San Diego, I think, Gerdip at Veeam, quite a strong thing.
Yes, yes, it was. It was presented at San Diego, and what I really like about this model is that if you look at the data resiliency space, there is no model like there is in the cybersecurity space where you've got NIST frameworks, for example, that organizations can measure themselves against in terms of their maturity levels. This model does that for the data resiliency marketplace. So I really like the fact that Veeam have gone out, created this model with the backing of McKinsey and a number of the tech giants out there, Microsoft and the like, coupled with end user CIO feedback as well. Over 500 CIOs went into compiling this model, and their feedback went into compiling this model. And effectively, it's looking at how mature you are from a data resiliency and protection point of view. At the very entry level, you rate yourself as, for example, basic. This is where you'll have sort of reactive or manual processes from a backup point of view, a recovery point of view. The next level up is like intermediary, where essentially you've got a reliable backup in place. You may have done some, you do some DR testing, but it's not automated, or there's no orchestration behind all of that. The next level up, when you get to advanced level, you're moving into that sort of space, and then the final level is self-optimizing, where it brings in instant response playbooks and everything else that you need around the side of data resilience to get your environments back up and running. So it's a really interesting model. It's available from Veeam actually to a lot of their enterprise customers, but Covenco also taking this approach to our customers and utilizing this model because it's an excellent framework to help us take our customers up that maturity scale as well. Luca, is anything you may want to add with this?
No, what you said is totally correct. The idea is to give a framework, as you mentioned, to use it as a guideline to measure your current state. And so it's easier to identify all the gaps you have in your growth to have a resilience environment. Because, everybody can apply common sense. You can apply best practices. We all know how a resilient environment should look like. But having metrics that can be applied to your environment gives you a snapshot of your state, and understanding where you are in there are 4 levels in the maturity model, but they are also described in detail. So if you end up, for example, in the second level, you can read how it's like to be in the third and fourth level. And so you have also a roadmap to work with your internal team, your consultant, your service provider, or your third parties to bring your company to the higher level. And this is also important because if you think not just from an operational point of view, but from a financial and legal point of view, some of the vertical sector, like the banking industry, for example, has already introduced some evaluation criteria for your resilience, which is not just financial. But if you think about in Europe, I'm not super aware of the UK market, but in Europe in general, you're talking about the DORA, the NIS2 standards. And if you read them, it's not anymore just the financials, but it's also the financial institution is being checked for their own IT posture. And so it's also a good help for bringing your company to be legal, first of all, and then obviously keep your business running. So I think it's a very good thing with it. Model.
Yeah, a lot of my customers in that sector refer to that as the operational resilience piece, because it's outside of just a technology standpoint. It's the process, it's the people, it's every area of the operation that it affects. So, no, but I really like the model, so it's great. And I know, Ben, you're going to talk a little bit about the speeds of downtime and recovery, etc.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and as you guys just touched on there, you've got the I guess the 4 horizons or 4 stages of the maturity model, and the infographic that's there on the right. The statistics and metrics have proven that with this framework that organizations that are at that highest maturity level, they are on paper recovering from outages a lot faster, and they are experiencing significantly less downtime and data loss. So there's even proof in the pudding that this framework is working. which is why it's so important. So if we can have a look at the next slide, please. So yeah, this is going to be the last slide from me just for the next poll. But yeah, we've been talking a lot about theory here, and I appreciate, we could have quite a lot of technical people on the call. So we just wanted to put, a quick kind of one pane of glass together of what does this look like from a technical perspective. And anyone who is on this webinar who was on our previous webinar, I think in December, where we talked about what's coming in 2025 with the new cybersecurity frameworks with NIS2 and DORA, as Luca mentioned. We touched on there the maturity model and what is involved, from a technical perspective in each of these stages, from 1 to 4, what you would see in a Veeam environment, in a DR best practices when it comes to DR plans and testing, and all the components that need to come together to meet a level 4 maturity. So there's a couple here on the screen. Again, feel free to take a quick screenshot if you'd like. These are some kind of key top 10 that we feel are what you call low-hanging fruit, quick wins, but also very powerful quick wins. And again, if Covenco are very teed up to assist with this, if anyone here on the call would like any. And I think we are then moving on to a couple more polls. So the next one up, how mature is your resiliency posture currently?
Whilst we're going through that, I'd just like to say at the end, as it was touched upon a second ago, Veeam obviously have the ability, as well as Covenco, to offer that cloud backup and that immutability piece. Where we fit is that on-premise immutability piece, and we work perfectly in a line with those cloud. We advocate for it as that long-term retention, that archiving piece. So yeah, we work oftentimes in that same backup strategy.
I mean, the poll results are really interesting as well. 68% of the audience are at an intermediary stage, which is really great. Actually, I didn't expect it to be even that high, but and 32% at advanced. That's really good stuff. Yeah, I mean, like Ruka said, this model does take you down a roadmap. So if you're interested in obtaining a little bit more detail about that, then please reach out to me afterwards, and I'd be more than happy to share what those steps look like to help you increase that. And we ourselves run various gap analyses as well, so we can always assist you in that process.
Gurdeep, don't be shy to say you're basic, because if you download the paper that comes with the maturity model, 40% of the interviews, and those are very large enterprises, says they are on the basic level based on the parameter that we set in the framework. So, but it's okay. It's not, it's not blaming. It's more like understanding where you are so you can grow up in your environment.
Yeah.
So obviously, everybody wants to be a level 3, a level 4, but level 4 is really like self-optimizing, AI-driven decision, auto repair, auto fix. So people can get there, but it's very expensive also let's say level 3 is something where everybody can aspire to get there. So it's a process also, because it takes time, it takes budget, it takes activities to get there. So it's a process.
No, I understand, and I guess for obviously we're introducing this model probably for the first time to the audience. So
yes.
We will try and send a lot more detail out to everybody who's joined about.
Just full disclosure, we got the training internally 3 weeks ago about it. So it's
really
new for
everybody.
Right? It's very fresh for everybody. Yes. Yeah. No, I saw a question coming in, but I have a hook in my section to answer to that. So I will answer as soon as my turn to.
No problem. So local immutability. So another question that was asked about: do you have local immutable backups? Is it just offsite? Do they extend locally? Again, yes, both local, 18%, 6% yes, immutable local copies only, which is great as well. 47% offsite only, which is probably what I expected. I expected most of the audience to have an offsite immutable copy, because that's generally what's been marketed and available over the last three years or so. And 24% that they don't have immutable at all. Okay, well, we can absolutely help you to get you a copy of that immutable data as well.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, so I guess now is my opportunity to welcome you again, Luca. Thank you for joining us. Really appreciate your time. And yeah, look forward to hearing your piece on version 13.
Yeah. Thanks. So yeah, we take the opportunity to talk about the upcoming version 13, but also to cover some of the general topics that we have about Veeam. So in Veeam, we talked lately about data resilience. Yes, we know we didn't talk about backup anymore specifically, but because backup is not an insurance anymore, is more a security practice. It's become because the real reason for restoring data from backup is not because you deleted the file by mistake, but because you got hit by some attacks. So it's changing the landscape. And to do so, we also changed our technology, probably noticed in the last year, to introduce more and more specific security features into our technology. We still do data backup. I mean, we didn't change our business, but we focus more in the way we run our technology. Some of the core pillar we have in our choices in the improvement we have is data backup, obviously. So improve again and again the way we do the backup, data security. And this is important because, for example, a question that came in was, how do you guarantee that the data you back up are not containing malicious malware? We do have technology in Veeam to do this on the fly. We do have inline malware scanner. So when we do the backup, inline we scan the content of the backup. This guarantees that the backup is clean for what the knowledge of malware that you have at the time of the backup, obviously. Because it's signature based, so imagine like an antivirus. We have a signature of today, we scan all the data coming in today, and so we guarantee as of today they're clean. But we do the same even during the restore. So say you do the restore 2 months from now, obviously there are 0 days that were not known at the time of the backup. But when you do the restore, you can do the same scanning. So we have obviously updated signature up to the day when you do the restore. And so we can scan again the content of a backup so that when you restore in production, everything is clean. Because there is nothing worse than being hit by ransomware, had to restore everything from scratch just to reintroduce the malware again in your production system. This is horrible and we don't want it to happen. You can also do scans on the fly. You can apply Yara rules to go find specific infection once you identified the infection. And so all is designed to guarantee as much as possible that the data is secure. The other way we do it is by, oh, sorry, David.
So sorry, Luke. I was just because it was a 2-part question, so you've answered brilliantly the first part. Because
I left Veeam, the one for you. Yes.
Veeam take care of that first part of that protection and checking. And from the bad actors' point of view, we don't allow access to root on our solution. So if, say, you have your top admin, he has a bad day, he hates his job and decides, hey, I'm going to try and turn your backup repository out to the world so you can get hacked, there's nothing they can do to delete or wipe the backup you have in that immutable window. There's no changes, no deletions they can do to anything. So there's no access from anybody. So if somebody hacks you and then hacks your credentials, they can't destroy the box. If somebody internally in your company tries to do something terrible to the box, they can't delete anything in that immutable window.
Good, perfect. So next slide, please. We have seen this picture already into David's presentation. Use it again because we focused on to the multiple resiliency zones and the immutable storage. So our suggestion is that you should have immutable storage in every step of your backup. So primary, secondary, offline, every step ideally should be immutable. And this is the goal that you can reach for. It's also important, though, to have your control plane properly protected. And this is where we want to focus today, also talking about version 13. So the Veeam backup server has to be properly protected because, yes, it's not the one containing the data, but still is the control plane that can go and change configuration into the other pieces of the backup system. So a malicious actor can take control of the control plane and do bad things against your environment. We do already have some feature into the system, and we're bringing more and more. So if you go to the next one, this is one of the focus of version 13. Obviously, we chose a small selection of feature coming in version 13. The first one is totally unrelated, by the way, but I presented it because it's very cool and people like it. So we go to the next one. For people who may like it, we finally have the dark mode into our UI. So, it's a welcome.
The amount of cheers that this slide got at Veeam blew me away.
It's always like this, it's a totally unrelated technology feature, but it's like people love it. So I see also the clapping for some of the attendees there. So it was worth mentioning.
We love it.
Back to more technology. It saves your eyes. So in a way, it's also a security feature, It saves your eyes for bleeding. So it's a security feature. Next slide, more technology things. The very good, huge news of version 13. Obviously, you probably heard people about it. We're going to have the Linux version of the Veeam backup server, but it's not just the Linux version. It's going to be packaged into an appliance, which is pre-installed, pre-built, and pre-configured. So you download an ISO file if you want to make it a physical machine. You download an OVA if you want to deploy it as a virtual appliance on an hypervisor. It's pre-built, so it's simple to deploy. It's pre-configured. You don't need to do anything. You just deploy the appliance, configure 5 simple information, good to go. This is nice, but obviously you can say is once in a while, so it doesn't save me a lot of time, but it saves you from mistakes in the configuration. The second one is pre-hardened, and this is probably the most important one. Like David said, for the own appliances, we also have these appliances pre-hardened. So it's a stripped down version of Linux. No unneeded component, no unneeded services. Pre-hardened means that you don't have access to the local root. You can, but there is a procedure where you involve your security team. So we applied also our own concept of the 4 eyes authentication. So you need 2 different people in the team to authorize an admin to temporarily become a root to do things in the appliance. Okay. I see a funny comment. Yes, we have a green appliance on an orange appliance in your rack, potentially. But you need to buy a green bezel because we don't make the appliance itself. So you
I was going to say a green bezel would be good. Yeah.
You need to build a green bezel. Probably this is the next product we need to do in Veeam. So you do this one. For example, we also have mandatory multi-factor authentication in the appliance. We have it in the software, but here is enabled, so it's mandatory. The database and all the system are configured, and we applied ourselves all the DISA-STIG security configuration that you heard about in Veeam. Thanks to this is predictable machine, so you don't incur into mistakes in configuring your Veeam server. Like, for example, you deploy it on Windows and you forget RDP enabled, things like that. So everything is stripped down. Also, we take care of the updates. The machine self-update itself. We have update for both the operating system and the Veeam solutions inside the box. You can manually apply the updates into the system. You will see a pop-up that says there is an update available, please apply it. And we will push the update after, for now is 90 days, but we even have an idea to reduce this time. So if you don't apply the update in 90 days, the software will do it. Second one, because when we talk about security, the triad, when we talk about confidentiality, integrity, availability, security is also availability. So the appliance will be able to work in high availability mode. You see here a simple screenshot that explains how this works. You will have 2 nodes, active and passive. They sync in real time between each other. You log into the primary node. If the primary node is offline, the software already offers you through a virtual IP to connect to the second one and keep going. This means that even a crash in the appliance doesn't stop your business, but you can also plan rolling upgrades because you can do the failover in a planned mode. So even during an upgrade, this is guaranteeing your uptime. And think about, we are in a service provider event, think about your SLAs that you guarantee to your customer, now with the HA appliance. Last one. Next slide, please. Okay. We focused on backups today, but Cloud Connect and the other Veeam technology also offer replication, so which means disaster recovery. So far, it used to be a walled garden, in the meaning that we were offering hypervisor to the same hypervisor replication, so VMware to VMware, Hyper-V to Hyper-V. Now we have an additional solution for CDP, which is agent-based. And so you can imagine having a physical server, like a physical Windows server that you have in your on-prem of a customer, and you can replicate it in real time to another virtual environment, which is either on-prem or an hypervisor behind Cloud Connect in Covenco. And so, yes, you've been attacked by ransomware, you need to restore all your data, but sometimes you also need to be back in business in 5 minutes. So while you restore data into your primary data center, you can spin up the server into the service provider environment. It was only available for virtual machines before, but now it's even available for physical server. Or think about even public cloud virtual machines stored somewhere in the cloud. It can be replicated into Cloud Connect. So all the combination are possible now with this technology. We got many, many more features, but I will invite you in that case to have a look at the release note of the version 13, because we are almost up to the time. So I think it's enough for me.
That's great stuff, Luca. Thank you very much. Yeah, the universal CDP stuff is going to be really exciting for us, and a lot of our customers will be extending that out to them in the coming weeks and months. So I'm conscious of time. So just to sort of summarize, there is a big problem out there. It's very active. They do go after, unfortunately, your data, and that data is stored on a repository. Making that immutable or adding local immutability to your overall backup strategy, I think now is it's a must. And I know we've got some customers on here that have that in place already, so that's great stuff, and it'll only get better and smoother. But for those that don't have that at the moment, I would absolutely ask you to consider that going forward. We're here to help. The OOTBI appliance is a really nice, easy plug-and-play appliance that has no effort really on your part. You don't have to manage it. It just works. It's almost like the same strapline as Veeam, probably because of the owners being the same. It just works, and that's exactly what it does. Yep. It's quick, it's simple, it's effective, and it's scalable, and it offers you that protection. You've obviously got the offsite immutability, for those customers that we saw on the poll earlier, where we had, just local immutability, which is great. You absolutely need to have an offsite backup, because if you are compromised, then you've lost everything. You have no ability to recover back, and it's really, really important to have an offsite, off-network backup. And I've been having these discussions with customers lately who've had their own data centers where they've got cross-site backups going on, but they've got no off-site, off-network copy of their data. So that's really critical, really important into wider strategy. You've then got the recovery aspects to all of this, where you've got your data, it's protected, but then how are you going to recover it? Where are you going to recover it? We offer these facilities where you can spin up in our cloud infrastructure and recover onto it. We offer the ability to be able to restore all of your data back onto a completely green, clean infrastructure, and then take that infrastructure and place it in your environment, so you have some control as to how you can get users to access that. It's a very, very popular method of recovery when it comes to ransomware attacks, because it will take you an amount of time to actually understand the compromise that you've been through. So the first thing you ought to really be doing is running a compromise assessment to try and understand how you've been penetrated in the first place, how far it's spread, what network hygiene process you have to go through to ensure that there's nothing lurking in that network that then you can provide access to a DR recovery environment. So shift to site, very old school, but extremely effective when it comes to recovery in a ransomware attack, and we provide all of those services. Incident response plans. We had a customer yesterday who invoked our service, and his first question was, well, what do I do, Gurdip? And I'm like, okay, this is what we do. And I asked the question, do you have a formal incident response plan in place? And the response to that was no, we have cyber insurance in place. Yeah, they couldn't get through to anybody in cyber insurance that would help them yesterday from an incident response point of view. So I arranged that. So we have the capability to do that. And earlier today, late this morning, an incident response team was introduced by the cyber insurance provider. So they're now actively involved with us in the whole recovery process. But incident response plans are so important now. It's almost like having a business continuity plan. And obviously an incident response plan forms part of that wider business continuity plan. And then once your DR environment is recovered, we always recommend that you are running a threat hunting exercise in that recovered environment. Because again, if there are any backdoors that are left open, then the threat hunting tool sets that are deployed will pick those up and give you a fighting chance to isolate that environment so that you're not breached again. So, final poll of the session. Would your organisation benefit from a review? If you feel that that's the case, then please let us know. I'd be more than happy to engage myself and the team to sit down with you and have a look at your current plans, see if they can be improved, and go from there. Okay, so to round up and finish, I'd really like to say thank you for taking the time out again and joining us. I'd like the opportunity to welcome you again. We hope you found the content very useful. Like I said earlier, you will get a copy of all of these slides, and yeah, we'll have the marketing team send that out to you. So once again, thank you to my panel and my guests for joining me. Really appreciate your time as well, and we look forward to hosting you again in the future. Actually, before we go, if there are any other questions that are coming through, can we just take a look at those? So one question from Steve. If Steve is still online, I think Luca and David addressed that a little bit earlier, where if you've got a backup and it's got an infection written in it, as Luca said, Veeam now has the capability to be able to identify those malware strains. It's not that it can identify absolutely everything, and you just don't know with zero-day threats, I guess, Luca. But in the main, it works really, really effectively. And if that's a feature that you don't have activated at the moment, then I'll reach out to you and we'll get one of our team to help you get those features activated.
It's signature based, so obviously it identifies what it knows. But as Ben mentioned, it's part of a defense in-depth strategy. So ideally, you have multiple layers of intrusion detection, antivirus checking, data protection. All together, they cover the what the other cannot do. But combined together, you get the final result of a overall protection. That's the idea, usually in security. There is no single tool that can do everything to protect everything,
Sure.
Yeah, but to that point from Gerd, again, Veeam ensure that the integrity of the data being written to us is secure, and from the very nature of what our box is, it is designed that once you have started writing backups and they're in that immutable window, nobody within the partner, nobody within the end user, nobody anywhere has the ability to delete or edit any of that data. That is just what our solution is. Our solution is it's designed to be simple, which then suggests maybe it's not as secure, but the point is it's the top end of security and at the low end of having to be very complex. That's just by design.
Excellent. I don't think we have any other questions, so I will now thank you all again for attending. And yeah, if you need to get hold of us, our details are on screen there. Please reach out to me. More than happy to pick up these discussions and do those reviews with you. And like I said, we will be sharing the recording of the presentation slides as well. So hopefully, if you need to replay anything, it's all there for you. Thank you once again. We look forward to hosting you again. Thanks all. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.